And welcome back to the booth. You know, BDM asked so nicely. He said, yes, please. He would like to see this match. And you know what? I would too. Let's head down to the feature match area for round 2 here from Pro Tour Magic Origins. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Magic Origins. We're in Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ian Duke. And we're ready for round number 2 where we have Shota Yasooka. You can take a look at Shota there. And he's going to play against the Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Tour Top 8 competitor, Paulo Vitor Damo Da Rosa. And we're in round 2. Now, this is, of course, booster draft. These players are each 1-0 with their booster draft decks. And we get to rumble here.
Yeah, so we have Paulo Vitor Damo Da Rosa piloting a white-red, fairly aggressive deck. It looks like it's not a super streamlined version. He's got a little bit of some clunky top-end prickle bores and cobble brutes and things of that nature, but generally a pretty aggressive, coherent game plan.
Okay. And we see Paulo has a very aggressive start here. He's got a Crowan Jailer into Topin Freeblade, so even a 1-drop, though not a particularly aggressive one. And the Visionary there for Shota Yasooka is actually going to hold it at bay here. And, in fact, get in for 3 damage thanks to Yeva's Force Mage. And Paulo's going to use his Jailer here as his entire turn 3 worth of mana, but he's going to get his Topin Freeblade Renown.
Right, which is quite nice because now it can hold off a Yeva's Force Mage or attack profitably and require a double block. So Shota here piloting a green-black sort of elf-themed deck.
And the reason why Shota would play this pre-combat, if you're sitting in Paulo's seat, is because Might of the Masses is in this format. It's a pump spell that counts how many creatures you have and gives the creature that you target +1/+1 for each of those. Normally, you'll see professional players play their creatures post-combat to hide information from their opponent, but Shota's really telegraphing Might of the Masses here by playing that card pre-combat.
That's right. Great point, Marshall. And as it turns out, he actually has 4 copies of Might of the Masses in his deck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And he does have one in his hand as well. So the Thornbow Archer just sitting there. And Paulo's going to pick up on this and figure out what he has. He cannot block here, but he is quite tempted to do so. I mean, this is part of the reason why he spent all that tempo, that turn 3, to get his Topin Freeblade Renown, is because it gets it bigger than anything else. And now he's not even going to be able to block.
Yeah. Tough situation for Paulo, but the pre-combat Thornbow Archer just telegraphs Might of the Masses so clearly there, and I don't think he wants to trade his Renown and Topin Freeblade for a single green mana.
Right. And so it's Veteran Sidearm as a follow-up for Shota, but Scab Clan Berserker from Paulo Vitor Damo Da Rosa,
wow.
that has haste, and he's going to attack with both into the feeble Thornbow Archer. It's just a 1/2 as it sits on the board, and you know, Shota really doesn't want to let Scab Clan Berserker get renowned as well. He'd be facing down 2 3/3s.
That's right.
You can see that Scab Clan Berserker has that extra ability too.
Yeah, which is actually quite relevant against a deck with 4 Might of the Masses.
Yeah.
Every time he casts one, or any other non-creature spell for that matter, he's taking 2 damage.
And he took it, so the Scab Clan Berserker is now renowned. And the ability will be in effect here. Okay, so equip up Yeva's Force Mage and attack with it. No great blocks here for Paulo. Enshrouding Mist is a card that Shota would keep in mind here as the only combat trick really available to Paulo, but he just takes the damage. So 3 damage, and an Orchard Spirit is the follow-up play for Yasooka. So both players able to use up most or all of their mana every turn here. And in the meantime, Paulo's going to attack with his 2 3/3s. The Jailer's just going to sit back. It isn't being activated pre-combat. And Yasooka took all of it. Huge hit of 6 damage. And I think we're going to see a War Oracle follow-up here.
Yeah, and this is quite a nice turn because it also lets Paulo leave up Enshrouding Mist.
Right. Yeah, so War Oracle is a 3/3 with lifelink and Renown 1. And that is going to put a real hurtin' on Yasooka here, as he's going to want to keep the attacks flowing. But the War Oracle plus Enshrouding Mist combo here means that Paulo's likely going to eat a combat trick and also gain 4 life this turn.
That's right. And
Nope.
remember that Paulo strongly suspects Might of the Masses from Shota.
Yes.
So he's going to keep that in mind as he tries to perhaps get through with his War Oracle.
Yep, so Shota's going to change gears here. He's only going to attack with his Orchard Spirit, which is the card that can't be blocked in this scenario. And he's going to follow up with Farika's Disciple, the 2/3 Death Touch that's got Renown.
Interesting.
So he is, you know, we talk about who's the beatdown when we talk about Magic, especially for Limited, it happens a lot. And, you know, deciding who's the aggressor in a given game and when, and that sometimes changes. In fact, it often changes.
Absolutely.
And we just witnessed one of those changes right here on camera where Yasooka was pretty consistently trying to punch through for damage, but Paulo was doing a better job of it, and Yasooka has now pumped the brakes, and he's in defense mode here.
And speaking of punching through for damage, it looks like Paulo's just picked up a Rogue's Passage, which he could use to get that War Oracle through.
Wow.
However, it would use his entire turn's worth of mana, basically. Other options here for Paulo, he could simply attack with the War Oracle. If Shota blocks with his Death Touching Farika's Disciple, he has the option of using Enshrouding Mists, which does prevent damage and hence prevents the Death Touch.
Yeah, the more likely block, though, is the Yeva's Force Mage with the Veteran Sidearm,
Right.
as it would be a one-for-one trade on a fairly expendable creature from Yasooka's perspective. Another option Paulo has is he can leverage the fact that he's hit a couple of land drops here and use that Jailer. You know, he can pass the turn, jail something down, untap, jail another something down, give himself some good attacks. He does have Yasooka all the way down to 7 here. He can also cast and equip the Veteran Sidearm and still have Enshrouding Mist mana available.
Yep, or the Throwing Knife for that matter.
Indeed.
The Sidearm is nice, though, because it does prevent that Yeva's Force Mage block that you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. He's going to go for the knife. Scab Clan Berserker, of course, only affecting your opponent. So Paulo can cast all the non-creature spells he feels like. Looks like Paulo's doing some math. He's equipped up the Topin Freeblade with the throwing knife. He can, whenever he attacks with the equipped creature, he can throw the knife, as it were, at a creature or player for 2 damage, and he's going to take out the tapped Orchard Spirit with it. But he is just rumbling with the team. Again, Yasooka is going to be paying a special attention to the fact that Paulo has a Plains up, which represents just Enshrouding Mist at this point. And looks like the blocks here from Shota Yasooka are War Oracle set to die, but you mentioned this a minute ago, Ian, that the Enshrouding Mist can save the War Oracle from Farika's Disciple and even gain some life. Shota's tapped out, so Paulo has free reign to do this however he feels is best.
Shota is not tapped out, actually, right? He has
I'm sorry,
G
he
up.
does have the green up. Yep.
So actually,
Thank
some
you,
pretty
Ian.
interesting interplay between the one-mana
Yeah.
combat tricks from both sides here.
And especially because Paulo just has to be 80% sure that Shota has Might of the Masses.
Right, and Shota blocking in such a way that he baits Paulo into playing Enshrouding Mists first, allowing him to then better decide what to play Might of the Masses on.
Yeah, he is going to take 2, though, dropping him to 5 thanks to playing a non-creature spell here. And he does. So the dust settles, and it leaves a couple of elves behind for Shota Yasooka. And Paulo still has his Scab Clan Berserker and that Jailer, which has been activated once and hasn't done anything else for the rest of the game. Though its time to shine may be incoming. that was an
Cruel
Unholy
Revival?
Hunger or something. Cruel
think it was a
Revival.
Cruel Revival.
Yeah, 5-mana removal spell. It's in the graveyard, which we can't quite see here, but Berserker down. And there's the sidearm, and Jailer's getting in. You know, Jailer came down on turn 1, got activated once and has been on the sideline since, and is now ready to rumble. Here's Cleric of the Forward Order.
So Paulo's really stabilized here, gaining a lot of life. And one really interesting thing is that Paulo has kept that Rogue's Passage in his hand, despite having the opportunity to play it.
Yeah, he's trying to set up the win with it. Yasooka's down to 3.
Right. So
because
Paulo,
of that second trigger from the Scab Clan Berserker.
Paulo clearly valuing the surprise value of being able to play the Rogue's Passage
Yeah.
and use it on the same turn.
Yeah, you know, we mentioned this in the draft, right?
Yep.
You'll often see the good players hold it in their hand until they can play it almost as if it were a sorcery. Just play it, activate it, get you. Here's Bonded Construct picking up equipment, and the last card in hand there for Yasooka is an Evolving Wilds. And that's going to do it for the first game. Shota Yasooka falls to Paulo Vitor Damo Da Rosa, who does use that Rogue's Passage to get in for lethal. We'll be back right after these messages.
Ignite your spark. Magic Origins is now available on Magic Online. Explore the new set by signing up for Magic Online at mtgo.com. The battle for Zendikar is coming to PAX Prime, and the Eldrazi are taking over. Join us for a special 1-hour Battle for Zendikar preview show hosted by Ashley Birch and featuring the Wizards of the Coast R&D team as they pull back the curtain on Magic's most exciting fall release ever.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Vancouver. Let's jump over and see. Let's see how Bronco Niernik from Belgium. Now that's our new King of the Hill. Is Bronco? He's playing against Zach Mandelblatt, and they're in game 1. And yikes, 7-3. That's a lethal attack.
Sure is.
Bronco in his mono red deck. That is, your screen is adjusted properly. Bronco's only playing one color.
Looks like a couple Thopters were told left over from Pia and Kieran Nalar.
Ooh. All right, well, this will signal to Zach that Bronco has drawn a creature or removal spell. And he's got the
Goblin Glory Chaser.
Goblin Glory
on
Chaser.
jump duty here.
Yeah, there we go. And this could be over quite quickly here. Brad Nelson's up a game in his match against Yoel Larson. Also, William Huey Jensen has picked up his first game against Jeremy Desani. Huey, who we watched draft on camera earlier today, has 2 Hangerback Walkers and a lot of other good cards in his deck, but he lost the first round.
Yeah, his deck looked quite strong.
Randy gave it an A- after they watched the draft. Okay, a Crone Sergeant. Looks like follow-up play here for Bronco. He's not going to get the job done, though. These both must be blocked. As they both represent lethal damage.
Yeah, not a whole lot Bronco can do. He could try a gambit of only blocking the troll and hoping that Zach doesn't sacrifice creatures to the husk, playing around, oh, I don't know. Not much that
two
he could have.
fiery
Two fiery impulses, yeah.
I was starting to think about it.
Slim as it may be, it's, I think, his only chance. And, of course, Zach does go ahead and commit.
Yeah, all right. So looks like we're just getting back underway on our main match. Anyway, so why don't we jump back over to Yasooka versus Paulo Vitor Damo Da Rosa and see how... Looks like they're just deciding on their mulligans here. One thing that we should mention here, especially as we see Yasooka mulligan, is that new mulligan rules.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is a new mulligan rule for this tournament, which is after mulligans have taken place, if you've mulliganed once or more, you get to scry one.
I've tried it.
How do you like it?
I like it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good feedback so far.
What's the idea behind it? Why look into this option?
So, major reason R&D started looking into this, and we experimented with a bunch of different versions before coming up with this one as our pick.
By the way, you just saw him do it there.
Yeah.
Yasooka scry.
We just like to give players a little bit more agency. I mean, there are some games where you mulligan down to 6 or even 5 and just don't come up with any lands, and maybe you don't even get to play a spell the entire game. So this is just an extra way to sort of give players some more agency and reduce the number of what we call non-games, where your deck just isn't able to function.
All right. We'll be keeping an eye on that as we go through the tournament. Now, a little bit of a weird start here for Yasooka. Thornbow Archer and then Guardians of Meletus. Those aren't cards you see next to each other too often, but here we are. The Archer immediately blanked by the 2/2 Topin Freeblade.
So even though the game didn't quite play out this way in Game 1, Shota correctly identifying that Paulo's white-red deck does want to be very aggressive and get in there early with renowned creatures. And Guardians is just a great way to stop those early ground attacks.
Paulo's going to get in for 2 damage with Auramancer. The Topin Freeblade's going to be blocked, but a Boggart Brute is the follow-up play here for Paulo. So a good start for both players, it must be said. They're both tapping lands, making creatures. And it's an Elvish Visionary, but nothing else for Yasooka. He gets in there with his Orchard Spirit, dropping Paulo down to 16 and just passes the turn back. I see a Suppression Bonds in hand for Paulo. Looks like he's got an Omprint Tactician and a Cleric to go with another couple of lands. You can see that on the right-hand side of your screen.
Yeah, the Tactician's pretty reasonable this turn. Looks like... Oh, he's going for the Suppression Bonds. Okay.
Oh, he's getting in there. Yeah, no good blocks here for Yasooka. He's got a 1/1 and a 1/2. He could double block the Freeblade, but this would incur... Well, he can double block either the Freeblade or the Brute, but it would incur quite a bit of risk here if Paulo had Enshrouding Mist in his hand. Now,
right, and notably, Paulo did play a Plains immediately before attacking.
Yeah, that will stand out very strongly to Shota.
Yep.
But it looks like he's decided that he needs to take the risk anyway, and I think that Paulo said, look, if that's the worst case, then now my Boggart Brute looks better, right? And ultimately, the Freeblade is just a 2-drop creature. It's expendable. 3 damage here from Yasooka.
And there's Shaman of the Pack.
Shaman of the Pack is a follow-up, and that's going to hit for 2. Okay. And there's an Omprint Tactician, which enables another attack here from Paulo Vitor Damo Da Rosa. This one's for 7. I think that Shota's a little bit lower than 18 on life, though, right? Didn't he take 3 from the Brute last turn?
Yes.
So
and the Auramancer.
Yeah, there we go. And the Auramancer. So he's down to 13. And looking to take 7. Morris is over half of his life total. He looks like he's considering trading the Shaman for the Auramancer here, potentially.
Oh, sure.
You can take a look at PV, the Hall of Famer from Brazil. Yasooka, he's on the Hall of Fame ballot this year. Looking to stake his claim to try to be counted among the elite. Pair of lands in hand for Yasooka as he passes the turn back, and it looks like Paulo is in the driver's seat here.
Yeah, just crashing in turn after turn.
Topin Freeblade in hand for Damo Da Rosa.
And Shota largely out of gas, it looks like.
Yeah, he is out of
Just
gas.
lands
All
in this
lands in hand, and he extends the hand. Paulo Vitor Damo Da Rosa improves to 2-0. Yasooka's going to be 1-1 going into the last round of draft, looking to pick up that 2-1, but Paulo's looking to 3-0 the draft and get off to another quick start. You know, he has really been on a tear lately.
Yeah.
That's not what friends do.
All right, so why don't we jump back over here and take a look at what Joel Larson and Brad Nelson are up to. Last I heard, Brad Nelson was up a game in the match, and whoa, we've got a bit of a board state here.
So many people.
You're at 13.
I wish.
He's at
6, I'm at 13.
Yeah. Although I could swap it the other way around. That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Did you hear that?
A little bit of friendly banter there.
Yeah,
between
he
players.
said, are you at 13? He said, I wish. He's at 6. Yeah, these guys know each other pretty well. You take a look at Brad. Brad is, former player of the year. He has developed into, I think he's known as a bit of a standard specialist in some ways these days. He does so well at standard, especially at the highest levels. But, I mean, the guy can battle.
Mm-hmm.
You can see he's got a Dwynen on the battlefield here as well. So to help bolster that reputation, Ian, premier play, lifetime match win percentage for Brad Nelson in standard, 72%.
Wow. 72%, that's incredible. To put that in context, I think most pro players would be extremely happy to have a 65%.
That
win
would be
rate
top
on
tier.
the Pro Tour, yeah.
Now, that's his lifetime, including when he first got on the Pro Tour. He's actually better now. He's at 76
Right.
this year.
That's what's
or
amazing.
this
I mean,
season.
Most players, their first couple of Pro Tours, they do all right, but maybe not so well.
Yeah.
But 72, even including those, that's just
Yeah, and now
phenomenal.
he's at 76. So unbelievable performances from Brad. And, of course, I will remind you that after this draft rounds, 5 rounds of standard are going to be incoming. So,
Right.
so Joel Larson looks like he maybe countered something there. He negated an anchor to the Aether, it looks like. Brad looking to go for the killing blow here. Sylvan Messenger is not the one. Wow. Hits 2 elves off of it and slams them on the table.
I'm just going to write him up. That's...
Llanowar Empath and a Yeva's Force Mage.
And Brad with the powerful Jiraga invocation in his hand.
That one can end some games.
Yes, it sure can.
Three cards in hand for Larson, who is also a top 8 competitor at the Pro Tour level. No slouch is Joel Larson. And it's another Ring Warden Owl here for Larson. He's got 2 of those.
So this may be the turn where we see Brad pull the trigger on Jiraga invocation.
Yeah, I think he probably will. With Larson down to just white and Shrouding Mist is the only card, and that would only save one of his creatures here. Yeah, it's a pretty tough spot for Larson, who has the double Ring Warden Owl, which normally do a pretty good job of closing out a game that's, somewhat stalled out or close, but Nelson actually has 2 different reach creatures on the battlefield right now. Dwynen has reach. She's a 3/4. And he's got a Hitchclaw Recluse as well.
It seems really tempting to play the invocation this turn, given you're against a blue-white deck and they've tapped out for a turn. You've got to be worried about counter spells or combat tricks.
Yeah, I think the question for Brad is if he fires it off here and his opponent has Enshrouding Mist, is there a way he can die on the following turn? And I think the answer is no.
All right. Well, it resolves, obviously.
And he is also going to equip up the Veteran Sidearm.
I'll use this on something. Not sure, yes. Why? Yes, yeah.
Also, Jeremy Desani has evened things up with Huey Jensen on our side table, so they're going to game 3. This one, though, could be over quickly. Nelson's up a game already on Larson, and he is going to effectively wipe away all of the creatures that Larson has. Since Larson hasn't been able to attack, they're all untapped and therefore can block.
Well, Larson is actually deciding what to use his Alchemist's Vial on. Prevents both attacking and blocking from a creature, so he can use the Vial pre-combat to stop one of those 4 creatures, which means Larson then gets to save one of his own, which would probably be Ring Warden Owl, and then perhaps with some combination of draws, he can start to pressure Brad's life total again. Though things are certainly looking bleak for Larson here. It's also possible he tries to double block one of the creatures.
Does he have that option?
Yes. Each of Brad's creatures must be blocked this turn if able, but they can be blocked by multiple creatures.
I mean, is he? Oh, you're saying double block and trade 2 for 1? I guess if he puts 2 Ring Wardens on the Recluse, that doesn't do it. Oh, he could put 2 of them on a Void Mage.
Yeah, I was looking at the Separatist Void Mage is what I was looking at.
That's interesting.
Sure. And he may as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows. Yo Larson knows how tight this situation is. He just has no wiggle room whatsoever. He might lose even if he plays it perfectly.
I see. So the decision is whether to...
Every creature has to be blocked.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay.
The decision is whether to
That makes it more complicated.
try to pick off Brad's Void Mage or to guarantee that he's left with the flying Ring Warden Owl. Now we can put, for example, the Owl and the Amprint Tactician in front of the Void Mage, and Brad can still only take out one of those. Oh, actually, this is an even better block than I was looking at before. Putting both Owls there on the Void Mage ensures that he'll be left with an Owl and picks off the Void Mage. So I think this is his best set of blocks.
Is that blocks? Yep.
Now Brad's at 10. This is a problem. Remember, Dwynen also triggered when he attacked there.
Now, did we mark trample damage from the Sylvan Messenger? It does have trample, doesn't it?
It does. It wasn't able to attack, though. He used the vial.
Oh, excuse me. That's right.
It is a 2/2 with trample, though.
Yeah.
Something you guys in R&D don't print
That's right.
currently. But when you dig back in time, you will find some kind of funny
It wasn't
things.
too long ago we made the 1/1 trample charging badger. Sort of an amusing
true.
little creature.
But that's
Put
like
an aura on it or something
that's
like
something
that.
to aspire to, right? That's the foundation of some building blocks.
That's right.
Sure.
So we've got another new King of the Hill. They're just flying around there. Musical chairs at the King of the Hill table. Zach Mendelblatt is now our King of the Hill. He beat Bronco near Nick in 2 games. So see if Zach can hold on to that seat. While on our side table here, Brad Nelson is lining up a pretty scary attack.
So
Couple
it looks
of
like
Yeva's Force Mages in one turn.
Yeva's Force Mage is on the Sylvan Messenger here, so that's a 4/4 trample. And the Veteran Sidearm is now on Dwynen, so she's a 4/5.
She's a 4/5. The Messenger's a 5/5.
And Yol here has Nivix Barrier, so he can flash that in and relieve some of the pressure.
In some way.
He's going to cast a Nivix Barrier.
What I do.
He says, I'm doing it either way, but can I survive? I think he can survive this turn. The problem is he's just falling further behind here.
Right.
These Yevas Force Mages are going to be left over. They're also 3/3s.
Minus this one.
Sure. Sure, so you take 4 down to 2.
Yeah.
Go.
It's going to need something pretty special here for Yo Larson.
Yeah, something like a Tragic Arrogance.
Tragic Arrogance is the card I was thinking of,
Yeah.
too. We were both on the same page. Jessian Thief, however, was not that card. And I think that Brad is just going to rumble here.
Yep, 5 lethal attackers versus 3 blockers.
Is that a Bounding Krasis? I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, fine, you got me. And that's going to do it. Brad Nelson wins the match 2-0, so he's off to a great start for his PT. He's going to be heading to the finals, air quotes, of his pod.
That's right.
And see if he can't get things started. And like I said, you know, with how well he plays and prepares for standard tournaments, you got to figure if he come away with a 3-0, he's got to be feeling pretty good. He's going to have a deck he's happy with. All right, we've got one more match going here, and it is a good one. Jeremy Dezani of France, reigning player of the year on the right-hand side. He's playing against William Huey Jensen. Maybe you heard of him. One of the best players in the game. Looks like Huey's got maybe a Hixus in hand.
Now, Huey we saw draft earlier. His draft deck looked quite good. Double Hangerback Walker, lots of solid white creatures, potential for a small aura sub-theme. But unfortunately for him, he did lose the first round.
Yep.
That's Huey. That's his nickname anyway. His real name's William. I don't think I've ever heard anybody call him William.
Sure.
And Somberwald Alpha here for Jeremy Dezani. And Wolf and another Wolf. So Timberpack Wolf's going to get in there. And Huey says, yeah, sure, take 2. No worries. These players do find themselves with an 0-1 record here in the second round. And it's going to be Read the Bones for Jensen. I think he would like to hit a land drop here. It's going to go top and bottom.
Yeah, it looks like he did keep that swamp.
Yeah, he also hit a plains. So now he can go land, Topin Freeblade.
How many cards do you have?
So pretty interesting and competitive board here. Jensen can play a second Freeblade this turn and get in with the Charging Griffin. But actually decides to get in with the Topin Freeblade here. He has Mighty Leap in his hand.
He's got Mighty Leap, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, take 3.
And Dezani offers the trade with the Void Mage.
Sure.
Jensen declining to use the Mighty Leap. Better to save it to continue to be able to attack into larger creatures, and just follows up with a replacement Topin Freeblade.
Yeah, he's also got a Hixus Prison Warden in his hand as well. Huey does.
We'll take a look at Hixus there for you. Legendary creature from Kithian's storyline.
Kind of his mentor, right?
That's right.
I saw that on the Inside
Taught
R&D
him
piece.
Hieromancy, law magic, so
Yeah.
can use that to imprison his enemies.
Interesting thing about Hixus as well is that there's a lot of text on there, but I'm pretty sure you could erase that big bottom chunk and I would be just fine playing a 5-mana 4/4 with Flash. All that other stuff is just bonus for me.
Yes,
you
and
know.
it's quite powerful.
It is a good
though,
bonus.
I should say.
I will not turn it down.
Yeah.
But oftentimes Hixus gets flashed in before blocks and ends up eating, as
Yes,
we say, a smaller
absolutely.
creature. And then anything else that hits goes away too. So, yeah,
right now?
very powerful card. Somberwald Alpha hitting the red zone, and no great blocks here for Huey.
If I block with 2 creatures, it only pumps once, right? If I block with 2 creatures, it only gets +1/+1/1.
Yeah, whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, it's not blocked for each one. So he could double block. It would become a 4/3, and then it would trade. I don't know if he has, though.
Trigger.
All right, it looks like there we go. He did double block. You know, that wasn't bad for Huey. I mean, it is a 2-for-1. Like, you don't like to see that if you're sitting in Huey's seat, 2 of your cards. But the Crowan Jailer wasn't doing a whole lot anyway. And the 2/2 Topin Freeblade didn't look like it was likely to get into the red zone soon. So, not bad. And here we go. Huey's just passed the turn back. Very conspicuously, I will say.
Yeah.
You know, he just read the bones.
That's
He
right.
hit 2 land drops. Like, you know. He put 1 on top, so he's got to have something if you're in Dizani's seat. Though I will say that it is a tough spot for Dizani because Hixus Prison Warden is a rare. You know, it's one of those cards that it just might not occur to Dizani. Oh, he's got Hixus, you know, unless he had seen it in the previous game or something, or maybe if he passed it in the draft.
Yeah, it's a little hard to know without seeing the history, but it looks like he is indeed playing around that, or at least around some combination of combat tricks.
Yeah, Celestial Flare maybe.
Yep.
Go.
And Huey showing good patience here. He didn't flash it in. He's going to try to get him.
Now, the thing is, Dizani has been stuck on lands and has quite a lot of gas in his hand, so he's pretty comfortable just continuing to play out 1 threat per turn. Doesn't really feel pressured to start attacking anytime soon. And with those Hitchclaw Recluses, it's hard for Huey to get in with any of his creatures.
Yeah. Dizani's down to 11, but he's not under any direct pressure here, thanks to the Recluses holding back that Charging Griffin. You know, a more obvious card for Dizani to think of is Celestial Flare, though don't know if that would warrant being played around here. And it looks like it's going to be Anchor to the Aether here on the Charging Griffin. Scry is being resolved.
Yeah, that's a nice play because the Charging Griffin with the Anointer of Champions actually can attack into the Hitchclaw Recluses profitably. And by anchoring the Charging Griffin to the Aether, Dizani actually gets 2 turns before that Charging Griffin is going to start attacking him again.
Yeah, solid play there from Dizani, who does keep the Scryed card on top of his library. And once again, Dizani just passes the turn back. And Huey just refusing to give up the information. He's going to just replay his Griffin, proceed as normal. It was a forest that Dizani decided to keep on top, it looks like. This is game 3 between these two here in the second round.
12.
If you're just joining us, we're watching Magic Origins booster draft here at the Pro Tour. And there's a Ring Ward now for Dizani. A land off the top for Huey. And there's that Charging Griffin hit in the red zone. This gets interesting because, assuming that it's going to get through here, Huey's going to use his Anointer and not have any creatures back. So this is going to highly incentivize Jeremy Dizani to attack.
Right, which is just what Huey wants. But we've seen Dizani playing pretty carefully here. Not attacking into open mana, not committing too much. I think we may see him attack with only the Ring Warden Owl this turn, for example. Maybe only the...
He doesn't want to get Celestial Flared, right?
Oh, that's true.
This has been a cool game.
Okay, wow. If he's considering attacking with 3 creatures, we may see some exciting stuff come up here with Hixus. He's in a tough spot because he doesn't want to attack with a single creature because of Celestial Flare, as you pointed out. But if he attacks with multiple creatures, he's playing right into Hixus. So he's got to decide what he thinks Huey has and sort of calculate sort of the weighted average of how devastating it would be if he plays into one thing versus another versus how likely it is that Huey has that.
If you've ever played against Huey, he always has it. Just FYI. And I think Jeremy's actually going to ask a question.
Yeah. So the other note here that's important is Dazani has Wild Instincts in his hand, which gives a creature +2/+2 and lets it
All
fight.
right, I just saw Tim get a peek in there. Haha.
Okay, so Dazani is actually asking the judge for the card text on Hix's Prison Warden. So we know at least that Dazani is thinking about it.
This is awesome.
Yeah. So two top players here, both really thinking through all the possibilities, reading into what each other have done, and trying to come to a conclusion about what they each may have in hands. Now, Dazani does have Wild Instincts in his hand, which can give a creature +2/+2 and fight. So even if Hixus comes down and sort of locks down some creatures temporarily, if Dazani is later able to kill Hixus, all those creatures will come back.
Well, he's leaving back one Hitchclaw Recluse here. So interesting also on the fight topic there, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Huey has kept that Mighty Leap in his hand from the very beginning here, refusing to cast it. He didn't really have a great opportunity, but still, that could come in very handy. As since Hixus is a 4/4, it's pretty tough to have a creature bigger than that.
So we'll see if Huey decides to block any of the attacking creatures. Now, the benefit to blocking rather than letting them through and exiling them with Hixus' abilities is that he'll permanently destroy that creature if it dies in combat, whereas Hixus' ability is only temporary until Hixus leaves play.
But then you open yourself up to
But then you open yourself up to
Might
being
of the Masses,
fought.
Titanic Growth.
Or a pump spell. That's right.
And he did not block, in fact.
Yeah.
So it looks like Huey said, I can take this hit. I'm at 12. I'd rather just get rid of 3/4 of my opponent's team and leave me with a sweet 4/4.
So huge turn there.
That was big. Huey does fall down to 6 life, but Hixus has locked up most of the squad here for Jeremy Dazani, and he has to find himself out of this mess. It looks like it's going to be Leaf Gilder. He's going to try to set up next turn, and there's Dwynen's Elite as well for the, we'll get an elf token in there. He's going to try to set up for that Wild Instincts, but I don't think it's going to work.
Like William Huey Jensen actually has lethal here if he decides to use that Mighty Leap. And with only a single green mana on Dazani's side of the table, looks like Charging Griffin plus a Mighty Leap on Hixus.
He's still got the Hitchclaw Recluse, though, right?
Oh, he has the Hitchclaw Recluse.
Yeah, he left that one card back.
That's right,
to
he did,
Dazani,
of his 4
now we can
creatures.
see why.
Yes. So the board state actually much more interesting than I was making it out to be.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
This whole game has been awesome.
So here the Charging Griffin comes in. If it's blocked by the Recluse, it can get anointed for the 4th power.
Now, at what point does Huey have to start worrying about the crackback, as we say?
Immediately.
So this is where
He's
things
definitely
get
thinking
awesome.
about it, especially since, as we know, Dazani has Wild Instincts for +2/+2 and a fight in his hand. But Huey, on the other hand, is sitting on Mighty Leap.
Yeah, Dazani, I think he can block here with the Recluse and sort of force the issue. And hope that the instincts get him there. What Huey needs is a creature here, though.
Which he
Oh,
does have,
Hangerback Walker on 3. And how suspicious is this?
Right.
Two
leaving up
untapped
2
mana.
untapped mana. Yeah.
And Dazani has to be like, now, wait a second. And so I bet you Dazani's going to figure out that Huey either has Enshrouding Mist or what he actually has, which is Mighty Leap.
Although it is for sure one of the final turns of the game, and it may be correct even if Huey has nothing to leave up 2 mana there just as a bluff, because the extra counter on the Hangerback Walker is unlikely to be relevant with only a turn or 2 left in the game. So Dazani may be thinking, well, is Huey trying to sort of next level me here by leaving up mana and then making me play around it. And
This is sweet.
Dazani may conclude that the only way he can win is if he just goes for the Wild Instincts, assuming that Huey is bluffing with the mana that he left up there.
Or even coming to the conclusion that even if Huey has one of those two tricks, he can't beat them anyway.
Right.
Or
Which is a tough skill to learn. I mean, at a certain point, you have to say, if my opponent has this card, I can't win anyway. Therefore, I must assume he or she does not have the card and play as though he or she doesn't have it. And that's the only chance to win. So that may be what we're seeing here.
there's a turn to frog in hand now for Dazani.
And this actually...
This works for him, doesn't it? Oh, he doesn't have... Oh, he has got the Leaf Gilder. He could turn to frog.
He could.
It will still get the pump and the flying, but it won't be big enough.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So he's going to get all three of his creatures that were in jail back.
Amazing.
That was a huge sequence for Jeremy Dazani.
So that was Turn the Frog off the top, right?
Yes. Whew. That could be a game-swinging play here and maybe even lead Jeremy Dazani to a victory. Hangerback Walker, though, is still on the battlefield.
Yep.
Dazani does have a backup Hitchclaw Recluse. Remember, the other one chump blocked last turn, but he's got the one that just got out of jail.
That's right. So Dwynen's Elite was a 4/4 with 3 damage marked on it. Trades with the Hangerback Walker, but here come 3 Thopters.
Huey is top decking. He had to play that land out of his hand last turn so he could leave up his combat trick and play Hangerback Walker for 3. And this is Huey's I'm in the tank mode here. When he puts his hands on his head like that is when he has to count up a bunch. And
Wow, Enshrouding Mist, a very interesting top
That's what he
deck.
drew?
Yeah, for Jensen here.
where
So
was
he
that
had-
last turn?
Yeah. So he had no card starting the turn. He just drew Enshrouding Mists. This complicates the board even further. Options for Huey here. He can attack with the Charging Griffin. If the Recluse blocks it, the Anointer can make it a 4/4.
There was lethal damage. He fought it.
It had +2/+2/+2.
Oh, there's actually a bit of a rules question here. Turn to Frog was used on Hixus prior to the fight, which means that Hixus loses abilities. So the question is, does the triggered ability that would return the creatures to the battlefield, is that lost with Turn to Frog, or is it somehow attached to the original trigger of having removed them into exile?
And it looks like they've decided that the creatures do come back.
Okay.
Though that is interesting.
You have a different book, right? You guys still have 3 minutes and 1 minute extension.
Okay, so we got some clarification on that. It is the latter of what I just said, where the triggered ability that returns them is a delayed trigger that's attached to the initial triggered ability that removed
That was
them.
sick. Did you see that?
So the
Ring Warden Owl and the Hitchclaw Recluse double blocked, and Huey used Enshrouding Mist to take down the owl. Sorry to interrupt you there, Ian.
Yeah, no, it's much more important to get back to the action.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's not tied to when or how Hixus dies.
Correct.
The trigger just says when this thing goes away. Wow, this has been such a sweet game. There's been a bone to ash in hand for Dazani just rotting away for quite a while here too, but it could come in handy. You can hear him counting in French there, his native language.
2 cards.
Yes.
So Jensen's at 6. 1 Thopter can get in front of the Leaf Gilder.
These are going to happen, so these trades are going to happen, and Jensen's going to drop down to 5.
So Dazani with a bone to ash in hand that can threaten to stop.
The race is on.
Sure. Yep.
It's
It
2
looks like
turn
we're
clock
just
for
racing.
Jensen. Wow. It just got in there too. That's going to drop Jerry Dzani down to 3. He can only crack back for 2 and 1 realistically.
Looks like just an island off the top for Dzani.
And this could do it. Chump block here means 1 turn away for Jensen.
Wow.
Now, if he doesn't play a creature, it's actually better for him.
Yes, because Bone to Ash drawing a card
And he
looks like
did
nothing
it.
there.
Huey Jensen
Wow,
wins
what a
the
game.
match.
That was incredible.
That was one of the most fun matches I've ever commentated. Really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and watch that one again.
Yeah, it's so easy for us in the booth when we're like, oh, he's got Hixus in hand.
Right.
But Dzani knew it. He read him for it.
One of the things I love to do is go back and watch the players and imagine what it would be like to be in their seat without knowing what is in the opponent's hand. Makes for really interesting context.
That was super fun. And a great way to end round 2. That is going to do it, though, for round 2. So let's head back to the news desk and our own Richard Hagan.
Thanks very much, Marshall. That was great stuff. Round 2 is done. It is time to go inside the draft viewer. Not with one of our Hall of Famers like William Jensen, someone in their 3rd Pro Tour who's already beaten 2 players. He's sitting at 2-0. Let's head across for the draft viewer with Mark Jacobson.